IVM.
Hi, everybody. On behalf of the team at IVM Podcast, I have a request for you. We'd really appreciate it if you could go to ivmpodcast.com/survey and fill out our survey over there. It's going to take a few minutes to do, but it gives us some really interesting information that we can take to advertisers and brands about who's listening to the network. If you're comfortable giving us your email address, while you're filling out the survey, we'll enter you into a random drawing where we'll be sending out a bunch of IVM swag to some of our listeners. Last year, we sent out coffee mugs, and this year, we're hoping to send out much cooler stuff. That's ivmpodcast.com/survey. We really appreciate your help.
Welcome to another episode of the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. I'm your host this week, Ashwin. We have another full house with DJ joining us from London and Varun joining us from Singapore. So, gents, at the time we record this, we are 4 days away from the first test match of the India-Australia series. Varun, let me come to you. Are you excited yet? It feels like we've gone from IPL to some ODIs and T20s, but really the build-up has all been for this test match, hasn't it? This test series.
Yeah, and more importantly, because this is the only test in which Virat Kohli is playing. So it's a big one for India. I think India is going to struggle a little bit through the tests, especially without Kohli. And I was reading somewhere that Anil Kumble said that, if India wants to repeat what they did 2 years ago, they got to come out strong in the first test. So I think a lot of us are, more than the test series, looking forward to the first test, and hopefully India puts up a good fight.
Yeah, I mean, you jumped right into it and already starting to set expectations a little bit low for yourself. But DJ, let me come to you. Have you had a chance, we're going to double click on all this, but have you had a chance to follow the practice matches at all, or has it been a little bit crazy for you? You're just saving and gearing up for the actual test?
So I've managed to watch some of it because with the time zones and it's a day-night game, right? So I get to watch the second half of the day because it starts at about 3:30 a.m. for me here. But the second half of the day is about 7 o'clock, 8. So I've been managing to catch some of it. I've managed to watch some of the bowling, which was fantastic. And then I managed to watch the end of day 2, which, oh my God, what a show by Rishabh Pant, right? So we'll talk about all of this, but I've been managing to catch bits and pieces.
Yeah. No spoilers. Don't get ahead of it. So before we get into the test match prep and the practice and matches, and again, we're going to spend the rest of this episode previewing the Adelaide test, the first test match, the pink ball test, all of that. Really quickly, last time we joined you, 2 of the T20s were over. India had sealed the T20 series. Varun, let me come to you. The third T20 was happening. I asked you, I think I remember on last week's show, are we going to, rest some guys, come in with the opportunity to just give some new guys some game time and say, whatever, we've won the series. And you said, no, we're going to play our full strength squad, go in for the kill, try to win the series 3-0. They did that. They went in for the full strength squad. Unfortunately, came in a little bit short. Do you think that was, in hindsight, that was the right idea?
Yeah, I mean, I think India had to try and win it, right? It's like we said last episode, it's a momentum game. And so they did well. One can't help but think that, both the ODI and the T20 series were 2-1, with the series won before the third match was even played. It wasn't as one-sided as I think the scoreline initially suggested. But I think it would have been a good opportunity for India to do a 3-0. Australia hit 186, which in a T20 is always a good score, but India had chased a higher score down. And so I did have expectation that India could do it. Unfortunately, I'll just talk through the match a little bit, but India lost Rahul early on. And I think as fans, we're not used to seeing that often. Rahul is the guy who's more stable. He gives us a quick start. He scores quickly. And so, that was a bit surprising. Kohli, I felt, played well for 85 of 61, but one can't help but think he, just batted a little bit slowly in the middle, and that kind of caused Samson and etc. to maybe try some rash shots. So I don't want to get too ahead of ourselves, but I really wish India had pulled off the third T20 as well.
So you've already hit on the point that I really want to just talk about, right? So we're not going to recap the whole match or anything, but Kohli walks in the third ball of the innings, builds a decent partnership with Shikhar Dhawan. They were batting at about 9 runs and over, exactly where you want to be. And then Dhawan gets out. This is what's really interesting to me, right? Kohli batted 85 of 61, which alone is not enough to have won the match, right? The rest of the team needed to bat faster than him. DJ, I feel like we've talked about this all the time in the context of KL Rahul or even Shikhar Dhawan at some points in the IPL. Are they batting too slowly and as a result putting more pressure on the other guys, right? Because you could look at it the way Varun has, but you could also look at it and say Samson is playing rash shots whether he needs to or not. Iyer got out on the first ball. Hardik Pandya came in, made a few runs, but I don't know. Do you blame the guy who makes 85 runs and consolidates because nobody else batted well? Or how do you think about that?
Yeah, it's a classic question, right? Like I for one find it very hard to understand why you need an anchor in T20 cricket, and there's been a lot of discussion around this during the IPL as well, where you had these guys coming out and saying the comments like strike rate is overrated, and you had Padikkal and Kohli and Rahul and all these guys playing this anchor role, and I just think that this is a mode of a batting which is just going to be outdated very, very soon. You're going to have, I mean, look at how England plays T20 as well as one-day cricket, right? It's go, go, go. And you can see that with Owen Morgan as well. When he comes in with KKR at like 20 for 5 or whatever that they usually were this season, he would come out and start swinging because it's T20 cricket. There's no point batting 60 balls for 85 runs, right? I mean, you're only scoring at 8.5 and over. And that does put a lot of pressure on other people. It's overly cautious almost is what I think. And like, see how the West Indies play their cricket. Who's their anchor? I don't know. Everybody's a six-hitter. Everybody hits big there and they're the world champions, right? England have won the ODI World Cup playing in that manner. So I think it's a strategy that really needs to be looked at. I think you can have at most one player in the team which does that. Maybe a Kohli. You can't have a Rahul and a Kohli and a Shikhar Dhawan, all of whom play that same role, right? So I think India need to look at it. They've been successful in the past. They won 10 in a row, 10 on the bounce. But questions will still remain whether this is the right approach to be taking in a 120-ball game.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, you're talking about T20, obviously. Not the greatest time to be alluding to the West Indies, who are really, really struggling in tests. But I know, totally different formats. It's just interesting to draw a parallel to a side that's been struggling. But Varun, let me ask you then, before we wrap up the T20s. At the end of the match, Australia won 2-1. So, India has won the ODI series 2-1. Australia has won the T20 series. Australia won the ODI series 2-1. India won the T20s 2-1. Hardik Pandya gets given the man of the series. And then this image starts doing the round where Pandya actually gave the man of the series trophy, in spirit to the newest member of the squad, Natarajan, who had a great IPL, who's broken through, who made his debut, and posted on social media, talked about how Natarajan, you should have won the man of the series. You were my man of the series. Was that just a great gesture, or how did you feel watching that?
I mean, I think Hardik has learned over the years. He's got his PR moves. It was a genius move on his part. Everyone's talking about how he's matured since he's had a baby, and so, I mean, I personally, I thought this was going to happen either way. Like, I knew that Pandya will get it, and I had a very strong feeling he'll give it to Natarajan. So, interesting. I mean, without trying to be overly, pessimistic about it, I think it was a nice gesture. It was something that was a nice gesture. But did I expect it? Yes, I did expect it.
Can I just add to
That's
that?
Really...
Have you seen the meme which says "Wo dekhe aaya"?
I haven't yet, but I saw you posted on Twitter.
Just great. Anyway, sorry.
No, that was good. All right. So that brought us to a wrap of the T20 series. The test match obviously is coming up soon. I wanted to ask you, DJ, really quickly before we get into the specifics of it. Is it just me, or is there a little bit more excitement over these practice matches than there is in normal series? So I was trying to remember, have I always sat and watched warm-up matches? Partly, have they always been broadcast? I mean, it was playing in the US on Willow, which I watched. The time zones worked for me a little bit to at least watch a couple sessions. Like, is there just because we're so excited because of the lack of cricket for a while and because of the magnitude of India-Australia? Or am I just misremembering and we always watch practice matches and warm-up matches?
No, I don't think we did watch warm-up matches and practice matches. In fact, I think we just, maybe for the World Cup or the ICC trophies, people would go and watch a game or two at the ground. But it wasn't telecast usually live, right? I mean, like, it didn't, like, the broadcaster didn't pick it up. It was something you maybe followed on Cricinfo if you were interested in a particular player and how they were doing. But I think it's just, everything is now box office. Ashwin, you've said it a number of times, right? You're just excited to see live cricket back on our screens. And I mean, it's just fantastic to see that. And it's very interesting because we are now watching these practice games and we're making up our minds about the squads that the teams are putting out, the playing 11 that should play. There's so much more scrutiny on these practice games this time around. I think the only thing I remember from last time around was that Prithvi Shaw kind of twisted his ankle and not much else from the practice games, right? That was in Australia last time around as well. He took a catch on the boundary and twisted his ankle and was out.
Interesting. So, yeah, I mean, I think it is, again, Varun, I don't know if you got a chance to watch this, but I think it is really interesting that we are now starting to pay much more close attention to and scrutiny to the practice games. Obviously, in one case, the match overlapped with the T20, so we had a slightly different squad. But let me ask you before we get into the specifics of the squad for the Adelaide match. Rohit Sharma, right? At the time of recording this, I think he's on the plane now. There's a picture of him in a private plane that has been doing the round. He will be flying into Australia today. He will be in a secure facility for 14 days, which means he will miss the first 2 tests, basically. And around about this time during the second test, he's going to be joining the squad and should be available for selection for the 3rd and 4th test. I know you were pretty passionate about this issue, so just an open-ended question on this one. What's your reaction?
Look, as a Indian cricket fan, I'm happy that somebody of Rohit's stature and talent is coming in, especially when Kohli is not there. As a fan, I'm happy. I think it'll boost India's chances of putting up a fight. And again, I keep saying putting up a fight because I think it's going to be a very difficult series. But from a more generic perspective, I think the drama that is surrounded this, I feel pretty sick in my stomach when I think about Rohit just, rocking up as he feels like, showing up when he wants, and then just finding his way into a playing 11 in the test match in Australia. So it's a mixed view, but you always have to say that people who are so talented sometimes get the benefit, and overall it might be a better result for India.
Very interesting. So we are going to use the next part of this show to go into the details of the squad. And the way I'm hoping to do this, we'll see if this works or not, is to go through kind of the playing 11. So we're not going to do a deep dive into each of the practice matches. We're going to go through the playing 11s and in that process talk about how each of those folks have done during the practice matches. So DJ, you posted a poll on Twitter asking basically about the open slots, right? We've talked a lot about this. If you go through the playing 11, which we will, there's probably 5 or 6 slots that are pretty guaranteed. So we're going to spend the rest of the time talking about the slots for the Adelaide match that are not quite guaranteed yet. All right. So let's start with the openers. Interestingly, DJ, you said who's the best opening partner for Mayank in the first day-night test. And the way we're looking at kind of the options are, so obviously Mayank, Prithvi Shaw, Shubman Gill, who hasn't played test cricket for India yet, KL Rahul or Hanuma Vihari. So I'm not asking about the partner yet. Is Mayank Agarwal in your head guaranteed his opening spot? So again, the guy's played 11 test matches. He averages 57. I just want to confirm. He by the way, did pretty well in the second practice match as well. So is Mayank a shoe-in for you, DJ?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, his performance last time round when he was parachuted in as an emergency opener, fantastic. Opening up in front of the Boxing Day crowd, playing a nice innings in an Indian win, just great. I mean, he's got experience of playing there. He's the senior man, almost, so to speak, right, with the rest of the contenders there. So no doubt in my mind that Mayank will be opening the batting come the first pink ball test that we're playing in Australia.
Fair enough. So Varun, let's talk about his partner, right? I think probably prior to going into the practice matches, we would have all been saying Prithvi Shaw is he's the incumbent. He's played in Australia before. He made a duck in the first outing, made 19 runs after that. Looked okay for his 40 runs in the second match, right? I think I was trying to remember how he scored it pretty quickly. At one point I was watching the highlights. Yeah, he goes 40 of 29. Let's talk about Prithvi Shaw. Is he going to open the batting with Mayank as we would look at Adelaide?
I really hope not. I think Prithvi Shaw has been in terrible form. He doesn't seem like a guy who's got his head on his shoulders right now. I saw the innings that you're referring to. It felt like he hit 40 of 10 balls and got out on the 11th ball. I really didn't realize it was 29. But rash shots, some just fishing outside the off stump. Bowlers were making him drive. He was driving and getting edges to the boundary. So all in all, I didn't like that innings. I'm really hoping that India does not play Prithvi Shaw.
So before I go back to DJ, let's talk about the alternative, right? So in our Twitter poll, which we ran, which was really interesting to see, Shubman Gill got 72%. Rahul was the second pick for opener, was at 15.9%. Hanuma Vihari, who's been playing at 6, which I have a really interesting question about later, but Hanuma Vihari was the third pick, and Prithvi Shaw was the 4th out of 4 picks. So who are you going with out of these 4 guys? It's not Shaw. Out of the other 3, who are you going with?
I think I would have to say Gill. I think Gill will open. And for me, it's a large part of it is the fact that KL Rahul did not get the second practice match. Now, either his workload has been high right from the IPL through all 6 games before the test matches start. But the fact that Rahul didn't get a go is surprising to me. His test record has not been that great in Australia and England over the last 2 years. And Gill, I think, seems more technically correct. I think it's just a matter of time before Gill finds his way into the test squad. Now, the challenge for me is Gill an opener? What happens when Rohit comes back? Is Gill the right replacement for Kohli? Should Rahul play in the test 11 at all? There are just too many questions. So this is the first time I'm really stumped. I don't know who is going to open, but if you had to ask me to place a bet, I would say Gill will open.
DJ, so we heard from Varun, Gill and Mayank are the opening pair. That also seemed to be the consensus in our Twitter poll. Do you agree, or do you have a different point of view?
I'm not that happy with that, to be honest. I mean, you mentioned it very briefly about the incumbent being Prithvi Shaw, right? Remember the tour of New Zealand, he was the opener there. He scored 250s in 2 test matches in what was otherwise a disappointing tour for the batsman generally. His last test innings is a 50 as well. I think this comes back to that whole point about, when we go back to the IPL, we think of him getting out in these bad, ugly ways, and there are technical errors and this and that. But I mean, even players like Sehwag had all of this, right? Like he was hit or miss. It was 4 of the first ball, he was out. Now, when Prithvi Shaw burst onto the scene 2 years ago with that 100 against the West Indies in 83, 84 balls, whatever it was, everyone compared him to Sehwag, a little bit to Sachin. I think Ravi Shastri, I heard recently, said he walks a little bit like Lara with that swagger. So we saw him bowl today as well, which was interesting. But anyway, coming back to the point, I think, I appreciate the Twitter poll says 72% like the look of Gill. Gill looks like a more classical batsman. But the message that you need to give your youngsters is that if you have done well in the last test match, and I focus on the word test match, you should be in the team for the next test match.
Where does that leave Karun Nair then?
I mean, we've talked about Karun Nair, right? Like he scored 300 and he played a few test matches after that. He didn't get kicked out immediately, but there are issues with that approach of dropping the youngster and saying you've not done enough to keep your place. But with Prithvi Shaw particularly, what is the effect going to be on him and his mind? He's played test cricket. He averages, I think, 55 in test cricket at the moment. He strikes at 86 runs per 100 balls. He's that attacking opener in Australia that could send the Australians on a leather hunt all day, like what Sehwag did. Remember the Boxing Day test match, he scored 195, right? If Shaw gets in, that can change the entire dynamic of a match. If the ball is seaming all over the place, he can pull an AB de Villiers and score those runs quickly. Maybe it's edgy, maybe it's going all over the place, over third man and stuff, but it's the mindset that India goes into this test match with. Are you going to go on the front foot? Are you going to attack the Australians? Are you going to back your players to play their natural game? Yes, there are technical deficiencies. I don't disagree with that. But I think he has done enough to keep his spot. And to replace him with Shubman Gill, who he's played along with at the under-19 level, comes with its own problems. That's all I'm saying.
I mean, there's a hot take if I ever heard one. Varun, it sounds like you're not quite on the same page. And let me ask you quickly again. We could spend all the episode talking about the openers. Everything DJ said has some validity to it. Where do you factor in form? Right? Like Prithvi Shaw had one of the worst IPLs he's ever had. I mean, he got dropped coming out of the IPL. I was looking at his last few scores. They were like 0, 9, 10, 7, 0, 0, 4. That was the run of scores he was on in the IPL. So everything DJ said is right, but how do you factor in form?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I can't see India play 0 for 1 like so many times. I think, DJ, it's fair. Like Sehwag at the start, maybe it's a fair comparison. But I mean, I think Sehwag is a different beast altogether. Like you don't have another Sehwag. And Prithvi Shaw, I really hope I'm proven wrong. I'm not saying he won't get a go, but I understand what you're saying. I think part of my gut tells me that India may be able to afford either a Shaw or a Pant. And again, we'll talk about this later. But, when you've got players who play their natural game and who can lose their wicket very quickly as well, you need to find some sort of a balance. So, yeah, it'll be interesting. I can't disagree with what DJ is saying.
Yeah, just the last point on that, Varun. And I agree with what you're saying as well. So that I mean, it's completely, we're all like all over the place. And I totally appreciate what you're saying. But it's that point about conflating T20 form with test match batting, right? Which comes back to how India look at various formats and players' forms across those formats. It's almost like if Shaw didn't play the IPL, he would have walked into this team, right? Like Cheteshwar Pujara.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you from my perspective, I think what India does make the mistake of conflating test ability with T20 ability. And I hate that. I think form is different. I think form, you're going out there to bat. It's in your head. Am I going to get out on the first ball? Am I going to make some runs? Am I going to go for hit a six, etc.? So I think form is probably transferable across formats. Ability, you shouldn't look at quite that way. I don't know. Varun, do you think that's the same thing, or is that overly simplified?
No, I think it's fair. I think I'm just probably feeling what every Indian fan or feels, or maybe how Indian selectors look at it as well. You're just so disappointed with the way he's played, the way he's thrown away his wicket. And so I just don't want to see that at the international level in Tests, when it's going to be a very tough fight for us. So I want to see somebody who can, fight it out, who can spend time in the middle, who can work through the tough phases, take the shine off the ball. I don't want to see somebody flashing outside the off stump as I have for so many years. So there's probably some baggage as well. But I do agree that if a Shaw gets stuck in, and we have seen Test matches where the match lasts 3.5 days. If one player hits 60 runs or 40 balls and gets out, he could be the game changer. So there's no easy way. I think the fact that KL Rahul and Shubman Gill are also around, this is going to be a very, very difficult decision.
Right. So we haven't even gotten past the openers yet, but lots of great debate. We haven't even mentioned our favorite player yet, but we're so excited for the Adelaide Test. We're going to take a quick break. We will come right back after this break and talk about the rest of the squad.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another great week on the IVM Podcast Network. If you're not following us on social media, don't you think it's about time you started? We're IVM Podcast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. I wanted to kind of just give a quick reminder to everybody. As I mentioned up top, we are doing our annual listener survey right now. If you could please go and take a couple of minutes out of your day and fill it out, we would really, really appreciate it. It's ivmpodcast.com/survey. If you're comfortable giving us your email address, we'll enter you into a random drawing, and we're going to be sending out swag to a bunch of randomly selected listeners. So do definitely get on board that train. Let me tell you a little bit about what we did on the network this week. We launched a new show called Zindagi Diaries with Ragini Kumar. Many of you might have seen Ragini on television during the IPL. She's a presenter, but she's showing a different side of herself over here with a poetry podcast. Give it a shot, give it a listen. Let me know what you all think. Vishal Gondal is back this week after a while. He's been on an extended break, but he has Rahul Narvekar for the first episode. Really interesting conversation. Do check it out. Raji Saman joins Gauri Devidayal on This Round Is On Me, the two talk about the wine business and what's going on there. We had a number of conversations about the Farmers Bill and the surrounding agitation this week on the network as well. Maruk Inayat had a great episode on the note. Pulyabazi did a deep dive into the issues around this. And on Siders, we have our typical, fun conversation about this stuff with a little bit of a seriousness, a little bit of fun. Do check that out on Cock and Bull on Thursday last week. Akash Mehta joined us for that episode. And with that, let me get you back to your show.
Welcome back to the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. We're knee-deep in talking about the India playing 11 for the first test match against Australia. So we've talked about the openers. DJ, let me quickly ask you, any debate or question about 3-4-5? I hope not, but Pujara 3, Kohli 4, Rahane 5 for the first test match. Any question?
Absolutely not. We can save some time and move on. Just solid engine room there.
Perfect. No question there then. Varun, I'm going to skip the lower order for a second because this is going to be our most interesting topic. And then I'm going to come to the bowlers. So let me first ask you, one of the questions we put on Twitter as a poll was, what is India's best bowling combination for the day-night test? Is it 4 seamers or is it 3 seamers and a spinner? Any question on that one?
It has to be 3 seamers and a spinner. I mean, India's strength has always been spin. Australia's going to go in with Nathan Lyon. If the match goes to the 5th day, spinners can make a difference. So to me, it's a no-brainer.
Let's talk about the first 3 quicks then, right? Let me ask you again, Varun, before I go back to DJ. Shami looked magnificent, by the way. I was watching the second practice match. He just looked outstanding. I think I went on a little bit.
Second innings
Shami was genius yesterday. He just looked outstanding with that. So no question on Shami. Obviously no question on Bumrah, who we've now realized can bat too. Maybe he's a future all-rounder for India. But that third seamer, basically the leaders in contention are Umesh Yadav, Navdeep Saini, and Mohammad Siraj. Arguably, what was really interesting is Yadav won the Twitter poll, but Saini and Siraj were tied in second place on Twitter. So it looks like it's not that clear. Who's going to make that third seamer spot for you?
If I was a selector, I would play Mohammad Siraj because I think he can get the ball to do something different. Like we've spoken about this a lot. Yadav and Saini are similar bowlers, just fast. So I would play Siraj. I don't want my third seamer to be picked at 5 or 6 runs and over. giving 100, 200 runs in one innings. I am particularly scared of that. But I have to also say, I think the choice is not great. Between these three, in an ideal situation, I wouldn't play any. So I have a feeling Siraj might get the nod.
Interesting. So basically you're saying we're missing Ishant for Australia?
Yeah, of course. I mean, no doubt. Look at India's bowling for the last few years. You're missing Ishant Sharma. You're missing Bhuvaneshwar Kumar as a backup. So, yeah, we don't have our best two bowlers. And that's why you've got this debate going on.
DJ, Umesh Yadav or Siraj Hossaini for you?
Oh man, it's a day that I'm disagreeing a lot with. This doesn't usually happen. It's usually you and me that go at it. But I think it's Umesh Yadav for me. And I'm just looking at the scorecard of the last day and night test match that we played. Umesh Yadav picked up 3 in the first innings and 5 in the second innings against Bangladesh, admittedly. But I can't see India playing a bowler who is going to be making his test debut in the first day and night test match they're playing in Australia. I think Umesh Yadav has the experience. He has the class. He does it for long periods in Indian conditions. He has a poor average in Australia, mind you. I think I looked at this a little while ago. He averages like 45 down under, which is poor because he bowls a lot on the leg side and he gets picked a lot away. He bowls straighter in India and the wickets are lower and slower, so he doesn't get hit away for 4 that much. But if he can adjust his line and length to match Australian wickets, I think he walks into the side based on his pink ball experience and his general India experience. So I'm going to go with the Twitter poll result on that one.
I mean, anybody who's heard this show enough knows that I'm not arguing that one as well. I'm a big fan of Umesh. I think he can do well with Shami and Bumrah leading the attack. He can do well as that third spinner. That's the seamer, excuse me. So, all right, we've got the openers down. No real consensus there. We've talked about the quicks. No real consensus there. Let's talk about the spinner. Maybe we'll find consensus here. So, Varun Jadeja's out of the running for the first test match, which might make this decision a little easier. The other 2 options in the squad are Ravi Ashwin and Kuldeep Yadav. Any question there?
No, it has to be Ashwin, no doubt.
Okay, so here's where we are so far, right? We've talked our opener, we talked our top 5, and we've talked our 4 bowlers, right? Ashwin, Shami, Bumrah confirmed, and then Umesh Yadav, let's say, as our 4th, just because we got 2 out of 3. DJ, before I talk about numbers 6 and 7, any final thoughts on Ashwin?
Can I just say that out of the Twitter poll, I put Kuldeep and Ashwin, and I actually would have loved to see Kuldeep play this game. Again, based on previous form in Australia, he's taken a 5-for in his last test innings in Australia. And I think we really struggle when it comes to the tail because we don't have a wrist spinner to just get the tail to hit the ball up in the air. And I think it's such an important aspect for test match cricket. So I would love to see Kuldeep play, but I don't think India is going to go down that route. And the logic for Kuldeep playing is also if Vihari plays, he can bowl the off spin that Ashwin bowls off spin. So as a pure bowler with experience in Australia, I think Ashwin will make it into the 11, but I would love to see India take that left field call like they did in the first Adelaide test in 2014 where they played Karan Sharma, remember? I would love to see them take that attacking call and play Kuldeep Yadav and give that boy the confidence to toss the ball up on these big grounds and take wickets. Because you know what they say, if it swings and seams, it's going to spin. So if the pink ball is going to move around, it'll spin for the wrist spinner as well.
I mean, I don't disagree with what you said about the wrist spin, but on behalf of my namesake, I'm a little offended almost that you compared Hanuma Vihari's off spin to a guy who's got 365 test wickets. Like you said, we can leave Ashwin out because Vihari bowls?
No, but it's having different skills for different times, right? Like if you have a part-time off spinner, so to speak. So you're spinning the ball away from the left-hander in any event.
But it's the equivalent of leaving out a full-time batsman for Ashwin's batting. You'd never do that.
Yeah, but Ashwin's batting has declined, right, for a long time.
So Vihari's bowling has never been at the level. That's just a bizarre comparator.
I agree.
Yeah, and it's like Vihari is going to bowl when Steve Smith is on 275 to try and get him out. That's when Vihari is going to bowl, not that when Steve Smith is on 5 runs.
Yeah, but I mean, the point there is, do you want Ashwin bowling to Steve Smith when he's on 5 or do you want Kuldeep bowling to Steve Smith? All I was saying is that you have off-spin covered. Right. I wasn't comparing Vihari to Ashwin. That's, as you say, it's an absurd comparison.
The fundamental implication behind that is that off-spin is off-spin. And Ashwin off-spin is not Vihari off-spin. You can't say you have off-spin covered.
Correct.
Anyway.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah, it's not. I mean, I don't think it's the same thing. I have no doubt that, to me, Ashwin should play. Obviously, if he has a weak first and second test, then think about options. When Jadeja comes back into being fit, that changes the game because of Jadeja's batting. I mean, Jadeja batting at 8 is a whole different ballgame in terms of giving you batting depth, and he's had success as a test bowler as well.
It felt like DJ saying off spin is off spin, leg spin is subhanallah.
Yeah, but it is because we struggle so much against the tail, man. And I mean, if Ashwin can run through the tail, that would be great.
Vihari can run through the
No, but what I'm saying is Kuldeep can run through the tail with his.
This might be your new. This might be the new Krunal Pandya's greatest of all time hot take for you to say Vihari's off spin is just as good.
But that's not what I'm saying. So you're putting words into my mouth now.
No, that's what you're implying. You're saying we should pick Kuldeep because we already got Vihari to bowl off.
If you need an off spinner, he can bowl off spin is what I'm saying. But Kuldeep is the more attacking option because he's a wrist spinner, and we've done that before, and we lack wrist spin in Test cricket. We don't play wrist spinners in Test cricket. This guy's had success as well on debut. So that's what I'm saying. I don't think he will play because India like to play Ashwin, at least in the first test of series. He played last time also, first test match. And he did well as well. So let's see.
Right. I'm sort of out of a reaction. I don't have much to say to that one. So, all right, we've sort of nailed down our openers, our bowlers, our middle order. Let's talk about the lower order. And of course, this comes as a question on the wicket-keeper. So I would almost argue this is split down the middle. Our Twitter poll seems to be biased. So we asked who should keep wicket for India in the first India-Australia test, Saha or Pant. Pant got 75% of the vote. Saha got 25%. Of course, we cannot not talk about Rishabh Pant's phenomenal outing in the second practice match, right? So he comes out. I think there were 22 overs or something left in the day. Vihari's batting on the other end. Vihari gets to a great century, just looks great. Varun, I don't know if you got a chance to watch this or the highlights, but Pant comes out, starts hitting, and slowly you start to see him get to the realization that he's 81 off 66 balls or 67 balls, and it's the 89 overs are done. So he's got 6 balls left. He's got to try to go for his century, and the guy hits 22 runs off the last over of a test match day, gets to 103, India declares overnight, etc. I mean, what is this guy made of, man?
Yeah, that was great. I mean, look, I did see his first 50 runs, and he was falling over, he was coughing, he was falling over himself, he had a sweep shot and fell to the ground. So not much has changed, but you can't help but think that Test cricket is where Rishabh Pant has excelled in the past. The fields are in, he's a good batsman, he's got the good hand-eye coordination. So I thought his innings in the second warm-up game was just great. I do want to also say that I think what will happen is India is going to have to pick between playing a Pant or a Shaw, and both are attacking, both can kind of take the opposition bowlers apart, but I think India is going to have to pick one, and so it'll really come down to who's the opening batsman. If it's Shaw, I have a feeling they'll go with Saha. If they pick Gill, I have a feeling they'll go with Pant.
So let me just quickly ask you before I come to DJ, is Vihari at 6 a shoe-in for you?
Yeah, it absolutely is. Like he's done very well. I think the challenge in Australia is always the top order somehow gets a little bit wobbly, and then you need your middle order to consolidate and put on those runs because Australia is going to hit mammoth totals. So I think Vihari is the right choice at number 6. He's done well. It gives you that stability. It gives you that depth, and it almost feels like a VVS Lakshman type situation, right? When Vihari is at 6. You're feeling a lot of comfort.
Okay, so you gave us 2 options, finally. You said either they'll open with Shaw and then play Saha, or they'll open with Gill and play Pant as keeper. If you're the chief selector, which one of those are you going with?
I would play Gill and Pant.
Gill and Pant. All right, DJ, let me come to you. First question, before I ask you about the keepers again. Vihari at 6, is that confirmed? Or honestly, could you play him at 8 or 9 because he's more in the team for his spin than his batting at this point for you?
Can I just say, you're the stats guy. Ashwin in Australia averages 48 with the ball.
And what does Vihari average?
Well, he hasn't bowled in Australia yet, has he? Oh, I don't know.
Didn't he bowl? He bowled a couple overs.
We can check that. But I'm saying he averages 48, so he's not the best option, maybe.
It was not a debate about is he the best option. It was a debate on you saying we should play Kuldeep because Vihari does the off spin that Ashwin does.
No, I was saying we should play Kuldeep because we can't bowl the tail out ever. And Ashwin is not going to solve that problem. I'm saying also Ashwin will play because of his batting and his 400s and all of that.
Oh, Vihari has bowled 35 overs in Australia and averages 47. So he's better than Ashwin as a bowler. He's a better bowler than Ashwin in Australia.
Statistically. But Ashwin also had like 4 tours. Hopefully he's learned, man. Anyway, Vihari.
Okay, jokes about, do you play Vihari at 6 guaranteed?
100%. 100%. He just scored 100.
Okay.
Yeah. Definitely.
The reason I'm asking that is there's a small but probably vocal group of people on social media that have been talking about why can't you play both Saha and Pant? Could you play Pant at 6, Saha at 7, and then either Vihari gets left out, which is unfortunate because he did well, or you mess around with his batting order again and you open with Vihari and Mayank. And I know you asked that in the poll, so you were thinking about it too.
Yeah, because he opened last time, right? In the Boxing Day test, I think. With Mayank, maybe? I think he did. He scored like 8 in an hour or something, from what I remember.
But he batted really long in that session, right?
Yeah, he did well for India, but yeah, I don't know if India's going to get him to open again.
They shouldn't also. Why would you bat him out of space? Yeah, it's unfair to Vihari, I think, to bat him out of position. And he's done well at 6. It's a tough position to bat in Test cricket.
So DJ, let me quickly ask you then. I know we could spend all day talking about this. Pant and Saha are fighting for number 7 then. How does your incumbent... I don't remember who played the last time we were playing a test match, right? Obviously, Pant played in Australia, but Saha may have played more recently. How does your strategy or your approach for Shaw and like the incumbent needs to get first dibs, how does that play in here for you?
So, I mean, we're obviously biased being the Rishabh Pant show and whatnot, but the conventional wisdom says that Saha is a better keeper, and if Pant keeps, he'll drop catches and that will cost us a lot of runs in Australia. So there's a CricViz stat that's floating around which shows that Pant actually has a better catch conversion rate than Saha, right? Which I found very, very, very surprising. And maybe it's unfair on Saha because he keeps on these Indian tracks where bottom edge hits his gloves and it goes down as a drop chance. I don't know. So, but if it's not making a difference on the keeping side, I actually think the guy who bats at 6 for you, it doesn't make a difference whether it's Saha or it's Pant. I mean, I'd rather have a Pant coming in when it's 200 for 4. And if it's 25 for 4, does it really make a difference whether it's Saha or it's Pant? I don't think so. So for me, it's Pant, right? And he was the incumbent and we messed around with him. Plus, he scored a blistering 100, man. That 22-run over was just... Oh, it was love.
So
pure love.
So Varun, before we conclude on our side, do you think we would have all felt a little bit differently about Rishabh Pant if he had not made that century in the second match?
I mean, I think, yeah, look, there is a bias, but I think DJ put it really well, that if you're 25 for 4 or even 75 for 4, to give India a little bit more credit, I don't think it's going to matter if you're playing Pant or Saha. But yeah, if you're 200 for 4, I would have Pant in too. I think DJ just described it perfectly.
Final question, and we are going to go through this in a lot more detail, but I have to ask before we watch the first match, what happens when we lose Virat Kohli at number 4? Like, how does this all change? Do you mess around with everybody's order? Do you just slot in, I don't know, whichever of Gill or Shaw doesn't play? Do you bring them in into the number 4 slot? Do you bring in Rahul just as a like-for-like replacement? Varun, let me ask you first. What's the game plan there?
I have no idea. Like, I have never been more confused in my life. I have no idea who's going to open. I just, for the life of me, I can't figure it out. I started having these theories that Vihari will bat at 4 because he batted at 4 in all the warm-up games. So I really don't know what's going to happen. I think let's get through the first test. Let's see what the opening pair is, and in the next podcast, let's ask that question.
Done. I think what is interesting is that's where my head was, is do you push Vihari to 4 and then you play both Pant and Saha at 6 and 7? Gives you a keeping option, but also some batting depth. But we will spend all of next week probably debriefing about as much of the test as is done and talking about that side. DJ, last question for you on this one. Let's talk about the opposition for a quick second. Mitchell Starc was not in the squad for the limited overs format because of some personal family leave he was granted. We've just heard he's coming back in. Starc, Cummins, Hazelwood. I mean, are we worried about the... I don't think there's any doubt, by the way. Like, they've got Sean Abbott, James Pattinson, and Mitchell Swepson in the side. But I think Starc, Cummins, Hazelwood, and Nathan Lyon is the 4, right? Any questions on that for the Australian side?
No, I think the question on both sides actually will be the batting, right? And how that holds up. I mean, India is going to lose Kohli after the first game. Varun briefly alluded to the number 4 problem, right? So I actually think we'll get... Maybe that's a compromise that's struck, that Shubman comes into bat 4 in the second test and sits out the first test. So Shaw can keep his opening spot in the first 2 games, right? I don't know. Who knows what is going to happen with this 11. But the batting is the problem for both sides. And I think Australia hold the edge once Warner is going to be back. Until then, anyone's game, man. It's going to be a cracking series. I mean, look at the debates we're having already. It's going to be fantastic just watching how the two teams play each other, go at each other's throats.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think just phenomenal. It's just going to be great. If you can't already tell, we are so incredibly excited. I think it's going to be a great, great, great series. Varun, predictions for the first test match, day-night test match at Adelaide, very, very close. What's your prediction?
I think Australia is going to win it.
Australia is going to win the first test match. DJ, let me ask you for that.
I think Bumrah is going to make 100 in his first class 100 in the Adelaide test.
Maybe Bumrah.
Should we bet Bumrah up the order then? Because Vihari can play low again. Right?
Bumrah should open the batting.
Vihari's our new number 11. Let Bumrah open.
Bumrah, he just swung and amazing. I mean, poor guy Cameron Green got hit in the head. He was looking in line for a test debut, right? And Bumrah is used to hitting people in the head with the ball. Actually, did some damage with the bat. But in all seriousness, I think it's going to be super close. I think India probably hold a slight edge going into the first game with Kohli playing and Warner out. And if they can get the combination right, it sounds like, and they've got good memories of Adelaide, right? They won the last test match here first time round. So, and Ashwin did really well in that game, to be honest. So, I suspect we will go with his off spin in the first game. But I think India is going to edge the first game like Anil Kumble wanted us to do. And and then that'll set the rest of the series up beautifully.
There you have it, guys. We're so excited. It's going to be a great first test match. We could spend the rest of the day talking about debating the openers, etc., debating the lower order. But there are different people than us who have to actually make that decision. One way or another, you can be sure we will be giving some feedback, critiquing it, criticizing it, or praising it if it works out in our favor. But that brings us to the end of this week's episode of the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. It has been a great couple of weeks in the world of cricket with lots more exciting action to come as we get into the holiday season. So thank you as always for joining us. You can get us at social media anywhere at One Tip One Hand, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. Email us contact@onetiponehand.com. Join our Discord server. You'll find links to that on our Twitter page. We'll put it in the show notes as well. This is our 149th episode. So in the next episode, the 150th, we're going to be running a great raffle where we got some prizes to give away, etc. So again, check that out. The best way to find all that information is on Twitter at One Tip One Hand. And we will be back with you next week, hopefully excitedly celebrating India's great start to the Test series in Australia. Thank you very much.
रिश्ते में तो हम तुम्हारे पॉडकास्ट लगते हैं. नाम है फुटबॉल शुटबॉल.
Presenting Football Shortball, a show about three friends discussing our favorite game over a beer. Sometimes 3, maybe even 5. Hi, I'm Shiva, and with me are my two sidekicks, Gaurav Sapre and Karthik Iyer.
Sidekick? You mean like Batman's Robin or Van Persie Robin?
No, I mean like Alexis Sanchez, but with a little more skill than just playing the piano.
Ha! Just shows how the best players at Arsenal are mere bench warmers at United.
Oh, thank you, Iyer. But you're a Fulham supporter, so whenever you say anything to support me, I question my beliefs.
Just like how Griezmann would say, एक बार मैंने जो decision ले लिया, तो मैं अपने आप की भी नहीं सुनता.
Banter aside, we will talk match reports, transfer rumors, top controversies, fantasy football picks, and so much more. So grab a beer and tune in to Football Shootball every Wednesday on the IVM Podcast app, website, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Sachin Tendulkar, Virat Kohli, Don Bradman, and now Cyrus Brocha. Okay, probably not in the right company. I mean, Don Bradman is Australian. But it's called Cyrus Says, a wonderful show about everything. Find the show on the IVM Podcast app, ivmpodcast.com, or wherever you listen to podcasts.